where we were. So we were going towards the proof of Kuperberg's argument for the ASN theorem. Remember, I was before that. Remember, I was showing you the example for n equals 2 for the computation of the partition function, and there are two configurations, and computed their weights, and we summed them and got this expression. And I told you that the Zergin-Korepin determinant should give the same expression, and I stopped over here, but I thought I'll show you on Sage. So I'll share this program with you. So I wrote this program to compute the Zergin matrix. X and Y are variables, and sig is a sigma function. And I computed the determinant and this, including this extra prefactors. Okay, and here is the Zergin-Korepin determinant parameter 2, and I factored the expression, and so let's compare. So this is this expression over here, and I want to compare with the example over here. So let's look at the numerator. So the numerator is this bit over here. So you see q to the 4 comes with x square y x1 square x2 square plus y1 square y2 square. That's this. And then q squared comes with 4 terms. X1 square y1 square, x1 square, x2 square y1 square, x1 square y2 square, and x2 square y2 square. So that's this product over here. And the last two terms are the same as the first two terms, omitting the factor of q to the 4, and that is 1 times this. Okay, so the numerator is all right. The denominator, these factors are the same as we want. Now what about this? So what we want is q squared sigma q squared, and if just to show you what that looks like, here is sigma q squared whole square. That's what we want over here, and you see you get exactly the same factors. These factors are exactly the same, and there's a q to the 4 in the denominator which would go to the numerator, but there's a q squared extra, so that makes it a q squared. So this matches exactly. Okay. All right. So this is at least verifies this example in a simple case, and what we have now is what we want to do now is to prove the Zergin-Korepin determinant formula. So what we did last time was assume this formula, and then take the special case q equals e to the 2 pi I by 3, and then we sort of assumed again Okada's result, which says that this becomes a staircase Schur function, and the rest was using the hook content formula and obtaining the ASM number. And another thing I did not do is to show you for n equals 3. So when you take n equals 3, you get 7 times 3 cubed for this factor, for this Schur function evaluated at all once. And if you multiply by the prefactor 3 to the minus 3 choose 2, that will cancel this, and you will get 7 exactly as result. Okay, so now what remains are two things to prove this formula, which I'll do first, or at least give the idea, and then the rest of the lecture will prove the Zergin. Again, give the main ideas. Okay, so ideas in the proof of Okada's theorem. So first let's evaluate what happens to sigma at q equal to omega. What happens to this factor? So remember, everything hinges on this kind of factor, which is sigma of q to the something times sigma of q times something times sigma of q times its reciprocal. So that's what we want. So let's say we want sigma of q, let's say qt. Okay. Sigma of q t bar. Okay, what is this? So let's just evaluate this. So this is qt minus q bar t bar times qt bar minus q bar t. And now let's see what happens. So this is q squared t squared minus 1, and this will become q squared minus t squared when I multiply by terms, and I'll get a qt over here and a qt over here, so I'll get q squared t squared. Okay, and so now let me expand. So this will give me q to the 4 t squared minus q squared times 1 plus t to the 4. Right? This was give a 1, this will give a t to the 4 plus t squared. So divided by the same thing. And now when I set q equal to omega, so this becomes at q equal to omega. Omega is the third root of unity, so then q to the 4 is just q. So I get 1 plus q times t squared minus q squared 1 plus t to the 4 divided by q squared t squared. And now we use the fact that 1 plus q squared, or 1 plus omega squared is 0. So we put a minus q squared. So this is minus q squared 1 plus t squared plus t to the 4th divided by q squared t squared. So the q squared actually cancels. And so we get a fairly simple expression. Okay, and so the ijth entry of the matrix becomes let's say the IK matrix, Zergen-Korpen matrix, becomes minus xi to the 4, because t you replace by xi by yj. And remember, this is in the denominator, so this t will go in the numerator. Okay, so you get minus xi to the 4 divided by xi to the 4 plus xi squared yj squared plus yj to the 4. Okay, and this I can write. So okay, so now some more jugglery. So so this factor depends only on I. Right? So I can pull it out row wise outside the determinant. So there's a minus xi to the 4, which I'll keep outside, and I will yeah, okay, so I'll write this. Yes, I'll write this as a xi, or yj to the 6 minus xi to the 6. This looks like something that you get when you expand 1 plus or xi plus yj cube, but no, sorry, xi cube minus this is of the form 1 a squared plus ab plus b squared, which is one of the factors in a cube minus b cube. So I'll write it in that way. So then I get a yj squared minus xi squared. So don't worry about this factor form. This will go outside. Okay. So then we use the following lemma. Then use this lemma again due to Okada. Same paper. So let x1 up to xn, y1 up to yn, a1 up to an, and b1 up to bn be indeterminates. Then we give an identity between two determinants. So determinant of bj minus ai divided by yj minus xi 1 less than equal to ij less than equal to n is equal to minus 1 to the n choose 2 divided by product ij equals 1 to n yj minus xi times determinant of a matrix Vn, where Vn is a 2n by 2n matrix whose rows are either of the form 1 xi up to xi to the n minus 1, ai xi, ai xi up to ai xi to the n minus 1. If so for the ith row, 1 less than equal to I less than equal to n, or it's 1 yi up to yi to the n minus 1. So it has to have 2n elements, remember, because it's a 2n element. So the first n rows are in this form, and the second n rows are, as you can guess, same things with a replaced by b and x replaced by y. N plus ith row 1 less than equal to x. Okay. So this is what it looks like, and now you can see that if you replace xi by xi to the 6, yj by yj to the 6, ai by xi squared, and bj by yj squared does the trick. So then you can apply, then you get this, and so what Okada's lemma shows is that this determinant becomes equal to a matrix whose rows and columns look like this. And now you can see the double staircase appearing because of the repetition of variables. So if you remember Okada's, so let's go back to Okada's result. So it becomes a sure function in these xi squares and yj squares, and the exponents are coming from here, as you can see, and the duplicity, the double, every variable, I mean every index occurring twice, comes from the fact that the rows are repeated. Okay, so that's the rough idea. And gives the shape. I'm skipping details, of course. I mean, there are outside factors and so on that will give you these prefactors. Okay, but I'm not going into it because I just want to sketch the idea. Okay, are there any questions about the proof? So, so this lemma is also useful for proving many other character identities, as I mentioned, relating partition functions of symmetric classes of ASMs and other classical characters. Okay, so if there are no more questions, I want to go on to the main result, which I have rewritten here, which is the proof of the Zergin-Korpen determinant. So this is really, I mean, this is the heart of the proof, and this is what allowed Kuperberg to prove the ASM theorem. So one thing which I did not stress, but I should have, I guess, is that you would have noticed immediately that this Zn is a symmetric function of xi's and that of yj's because of the determinant formula. But if you go back to the original formulation, which is here, you give all these funny weights, and you multiply for each configuration, you multiply out such weights, and you give row and column indices like this. It's not at all obvious that there's any symmetry between the exercises. So if I permute the exercise in some way, it's not at all obvious that you get the same partition function. Right? So I want to spend some time on proving that. Okay, so that is really the crucial step. So for our convenience, I have copy pasted these vertex types and weights, and so let me explain the ideas in the proof of ARK. These are important formulas. So this is already copied. So this is the statement of the theorem, and these are the weights. Okay. So the crucial step, the really hardest step in the proof, this is the proof, is to prove that Zn is symmetric separately in the xi's and the yj's. So that's really the non-trivial aspect of this proof, and so this I want to prove this, and so we will prove this for the xi's. And the way we do it is to show to show that Zn is symmetric under the interchange xi being interchange of xi and xi. Okay, so the key result here is a deep result, which is applicable in many other areas, and has applications in many contexts. Is the so-called Yang-Maxwell equation. So I mean, I'm not explaining it in the most general context, but for us, I will prove it, and it's already non-trivial. And this equation is what is going to explain the choice of weights, these funny choices of weights. Okay. All right, so let me explain that. So I'll write it in a pictorial way. This will sound completely random, but I'll explain what these things are. So if x, y, z equals q squared, q is our parameter, remember, then, okay, so then I'm going to do something that's going to sound very weird. Okay, I'm going to look at it. So let me fix something. Okay. This way. See? This is too long. So, okay, so let me draw the other direction. This other side of the equality. Okay, so maybe use. So there are 3 vertices, all of degree 4. Okay, so as in our 6 vertex model, and same here. And now let me label O1, O2, O3, O4, 5, 6. Similarly, O1, O6, and I'll give weights. The color. So the labels, sorry, these are X, Y, Z. Okay, so this is the Yang-Maxwell equation. So it is where O1 through O6 are indicators denoting whether the respective edges are directed inward, that is towards the vertex, or outward, away from it. Okay, so what does this mean? So let us fix some arrows for these 6 edges. Okay, and we fix the same arrows on the right hand side as well. Okay, then you notice there are 3 internal edges. You see, on both sides. And the claim is that when you sum over all possible internal edges consistent with the 6-vertex model, and for each internal edge you take the corresponding weight, and you do the same on the right hand side, this equality will hold provided x, y, z, these three parameters are equal to q square. Is the statement clear? And this is so many people are upset with this kind of notation, but I hope it's clear. So, is there any questions? Please ask. And the key point here is something that I emphasized last time, but and I said we will not use last time, but we will use it today. This is this remark. The label is we will always need to adjust so that the label is on the bottom left. So here this label, you rotate your head and you look from here for this label so that x is on the bottom left. Here you rotate by 180 degrees so that y is on the bottom left, but that's not going to matter because the orientations, I mean these weights are symmetric under 180 degree rotations. So if I rotate this by this and this, I'll get back the same vertex. 3 and 4 will exchange, but they have the same weight, and 5 and 6 will exchange, they have the same. Oh, sorry. So y is at the same location, and here also it's the same sort of. Well, here it's naturally in the top left. Z in both cases is not in the correct location, so you have to sort of rotate by 90 degrees to make it on the correct location, or equivalently we replace Z by Z bar because of this remark. If you rotate by 90 degrees, it's equivalent to replacing U by V. Okay. So let's prove this. So the proof is a case analysis. So first of all, from the in the 6-vertex model, the total flux across any vertex has to be 0. That means total incoming equals total outgoing. Edges, number of total outgoing incoming edges equals the number of total outgoing edges. So that means, I can't have something like all of them pointing outwards, or I mean I can, but then the weight is 0. So that means there are 6 edges, so, and 3 of them have to be incoming, say. So 6 choose 3, which is 20%. So 20 non-trivial percent. But this is too much to handle already. I mean, one can do it if you have a lot of time. But we have symmetries. Okay, so the first one is rotation of the entire figure, both left hand side and right hand side, by 180 degrees. So if you look carefully, let's go there. If I rotate this whole thing by 180 degrees, so this right hand side will become the left hand side will become the right hand side, then we know, so each vertex will rotate by 180 degrees, and we know the vertices are uh, the vertex, the weights are symmetric. So what the only thing that does is it takes O1 to O4 and vice versa, O2 to O5 and vice versa, O3 to O6 and vice versa. So this has the sole effect of OI going to OI plus 3 mod 6. Right? So that's one symmetry. Second one is reflection about the central horizontal axis. Or let's say about the horizontal axis passing through X. This is a little more non-trivial. What does this do? Okay, so let's see. So you draw an imaginary line like so. And you reflect this about this. What is going to happen? Well, X, the arrows will change, and the effect of the weight will be X going to X bar, if you think about it, on both sides. Okay? But here, what it will do is it will take Y to Z bar and Z to Y bar. Okay, so this will go here and will become a bar. Okay, because well, okay, one just has to wrap one's head. So this has the effect. I should remove that extra edges. So this has the effect what? X going to X bar, as I said, Y going to Z bar, and Z going to Y bar. Okay, but it does more. Consider the following example. So let's look at Y. So this is Y, which is over here. So let's take some valid 6-vertex configuration. So this is going up and left, and so let's look over here. So up and left is type 6, so it will give sigma of Q Y bar. Y is in the top right, which is the same as bottom left. So sigma of Q Y bar divided by sigma Q square. And this goes to, after rotation, this will become Y bar, and this will go here. So the horizontal arrows will remain unchanged, the vertical ones will flip. Right? So when you reflect this about X, this will go like so. Okay, but now you notice this is in the wrong position. Okay, so and now, okay, so let's see what this is. Okay, maybe it's more convenient to go here. So now this is going down and left. So down and left. Oh, where are the weights? Down and left is sigma. Is sigma of qy bar, but this is in the wrong location. So this will become sigma qy by sigma q square, right? So I'll have to do another bar, or if you want, rotate your head 90 degrees and confirm. So what has happened now is this guy has become messed up. It was a qy bar over here and it became qy. And to fix this, we also replace q by q bar. If you do that, then you will get sigma q bar y divided by sigma q bar squared. But sigma q bar y is minus sigma q y bar, and sigma q bar square is minus sigma q square. So the negative signs cancel and you get the same thing. Okay. So this and this will do it for all of these guys, right? I mean, the negative sign will go away. Okay. And these other cases don't matter. Okay. So what it's doing is we have to do these 4 changes, and notice that this leaves x, y, z equals q squared invariant. If I had just replaced this condition would not be true, because I will not be true anymore. So if it was true once, it would not be true. Okay. The third and last symmetry is reversal of all arrows. As I mentioned earlier, this leaves the weights in there. Okay, so we have all these symmetries at our disposal, and an exercise for you is to show that applying these symmetries reduces to verifying 5 non-isomorphic identities. One can, I think, do better, but this works for us. Okay, so so if for example these three are incoming and these 3 are outgoing, then these 3 outgoing, these 3 incoming works, and then you rotate and you do all those things. You can use ideas from group theory, group actions to do this, for example, or you can just do case by case. Okay, so let us check 5 identities. So here is where now you will see why these weights are chosen. Okay, so let us check. Verify these. Okay, so the first 2 are kind of easy. So what I should do is make a copy of this and use it all the way. I'll use it in all 5 cases. So the first case is this. Oh. So inward arrows are O1, O2 and O6. This is the first case. So let's see. So let me do this on both sides. So I fix O. Maybe I should use a both. So O1, O2, O6. Okay, and the rest outward. Outward, outward, outward. O1, O2, O6, O3. Please correct me if I'm making a mistake. It's very easy to make mistakes. Okay, so right. So now let's see. So let's look at O1 here. Sorry, O1. I mean this vertex Y, labeled Y. It has two incoming arrows. So then this is forced. There have to be two outgoing arrows. And now you see this has two incoming arrows. X has two incoming arrows, so this has to be outgoing. This has to be outgoing from X. And now you can verify that Z has two incoming and two outgoing. Okay, so this is frozen. There's exactly one. What about on this side? Let's look carefully. So, O1, so this time vertex Z has two incoming arrows. So it necessarily has to have two outgoing arrows. And now look at Y, it has two outgoing, and so it has to have two incoming. And if let's check, X has two incoming and two outgoing. Okay, so this is frozen. And now let's see the weights. So let's look at, so now here we have to be careful. So imagine X is at the bottom left. So let's check. So then this has down and right. So down and right. So it has sigma. So the weight is sigma qx bar. Oh, let's look from here also. So I can put x on the top right, and it's then so then x is, so here it is down and right. So it's again the same thing, sigma qx. What about here? What about y here? So it's down and left. So down and left, so that's sigma qy. And let's look at y here. It's in the correct order place. Top right over here, bottom left over here. So it's again down and left. So down left, so it's sigma qy. And what about z? It's this is in the wrong location, but let's keep that in mind and notice that it's also in the wrong location here. So it's down and right, and here also it's down and right. So down and right, there is that. Down and right. So it's in the wrong location, so I'll put sigma q. I should have put z bar, but z is in the wrong location, so we get sigma qz on both sides. So this is kind of trivially equal. It's equal. I didn't even have to compute this, you see. I checked that it's down right here, down right here, and down left here, and so on. Okay, so this works trivially. Second case is inward arrows are O1, O2, O3. Now let's put this here. And go back here. So what do we have? So O1, O2, O3 are inward. So O1, O2, O3, O4, O5, O6 are outward. O1, O2, O3 inward. O4, O5, O6 outward. And now let's see. This is forced. The two inward, so I have two outward, and then this forces this to be left. And over here, there's two inwards at x, so I have two outwards at x also, and at y I have this force, and let's check Z is okay and Z is okay here. So here this is okay, and now let's see here. Here I'm not even going to do the computation because it's going to be the same argument. So at X I have down and left, and at X I have down and left. At Y I have down and left again, Y down and left. Z I have down left, Z I have down left. Okay? So again both are equal. I don't even have to compute. Both equal. Because it's forced and we get exactly the same text. So this is another trivial case. So let's do the first non-trivial case, which is inward arrows. This time are O2, O4 and O6. Okay? Oh no, not this one. Okay, so now there is some. Okay, maybe I should. I will actually expand this because there are two cases. Okay, so I will put both arrows with different colors. So you can see. Okay, so now O2, O4, O6 invert, O2, O4, O6 invert, O1, O3, O5 invert, O2, O4, O6 invert, O1, O3. Okay, so let me use two other colors because they're going to be two different configurations. So now you notice that in each position there's one incoming, one outgoing. So here, here, and here, and here, here, and here. Okay, so we don't have a. We have to check all possibilities. Okay, so one possibility. Okay. So So I'll use one color on one side of this edge and the other. So let's pick one direction. Okay, so let's pick. Let's say this is going in this direction. Then this is forced because I have two incoming, so I need to have two outgoing. And now this is forced because I have two incoming, so I need to have two outgoing, and that should verify this. So yeah, I have two incoming, two outgoing. And let me do a similar case over here. Let me do this outgoing from here. So this has to be incoming, and so I have two incoming, so I have to have two outgoing, and let's check. So I have two incoming here and two outgoing. So it works. Okay, so now this fellow, so let me write the weights in the same color. So each of them, you notice, has weight 1 over here because they are all of types either 1 or 2. So both incoming horizontally, both outgoing vertically, both incoming horizontally, both outgoing vertically, both incoming vertically, outgoing horizontally. Okay? So this gives a 1 on this side. What about here? Again, both outgoing vertically, both incoming horizontally. For there, both incoming vertically, outgoing horizontally, incoming vertically, outgoing horizontally. So you get 1. Okay, so now that's the first one. And now let's see what the other fellow is. So let's use right. So now let me do the opposite here. So now this one, so ignore the pink. What is it? Yeah, pink. So now, so just focus on the orange and the red. Okay, so I know it's a bit hard, but just try. So one way to see what will happen is to just reverse all arrows. Okay, I mean this has to work because it worked earlier. Because the incoming outgoing will be fixed at each. Okay, so then let's see what's going to happen. So this we have to do. Oh, I have to do it on this side also. Sorry. So okay, so now let's see what's going to happen on both sides. So let's look at x over here. So x is from here down and right. Down and right is sigma qx bar. Uh, let's look at y. So it is still in the right position. Up and left. Up and left is sigma q y bar. And z is up and right. And up and right is sigma q z, but z is in the wrong position, so it's sigma q z. Similarly here, let me do it quickly. So x is down and right, so it's sigma q x bar. Y is up and left, so again sigma q y bar. And z is up and right, and that's sigma q z. But it's in the wrong position. I mean, so it becomes sigma q z. And now you can see again that this works. Both are the same. Okay, so all of these so far were homogeneous. The last two are the most interesting because they are non-homogeneous, and you will see some miraculous cancellation. So here inward arrows are O2, O3 and O6. So now you are getting the picture. So let me go a little faster. Oh, okay, now again I should. Okay, so O2, O3 and O6 are inwards, and O1, O4 are outwards. O2, O3, O6 inwards, O1, and now something funny is going to happen. You see on the right hand side there are two incoming at x. Okay, so these have to be two outgoing, and then you check and you fix this out. But on the left hand side, each one has one incoming, one outgoing. And this, I didn't emphasize this, but that's because the incidences have changed. Here O1 is adjacent to O2, but here O1 is adjacent to O6. So such things are going to happen. So let me draw the two things in red. So let's do that. So in red and pink as before. So let's suppose this is in this direction. So then there are two incoming over here. So two outgoing have to be there, and there's two incoming. So this has to be outgoing, and that matches this. And the other one, okay, so let me write that weight first. So on the left, I'll get for x there's weight 1 because of this condition, and for y there's again weight 1. Okay, so the only non-trivial case is for z. And what does z give? So z is down and left, but it's in the wrong direction. So down and left is sigma q u, but it's sigma q z bar. Oh, sorry, I forgot this earlier. I should have put sigma q squared. So this is qz bar by sigma q cubed, and I get plus other fellow, which I get by reversing all arrows. And now let's see what happens. So now x is down and right. So down and right is sigma qx bar. And y is up and left, again in the right position, up and left, and sigma q y bar, and divided by sigma, sigma of q squared whole square. And on the right hand side I have is the original color. So this is x is down and left, so that's sigma qx bar, no, so qx, and y is down and left, so that's sigma qy, and z is both is weight one, so I have sigma q squared whole squared, and this is a question mark. So let's look at the left hand side. So let's compute the numerator of the left hand side. So on the LHS we get so the numerator is sigma q squared sigma qz bar plus sigma qx bar sigma qy bar, and now let me simplify this quickly. So I get this is q to the 4 minus 1 q squared minus z squared plus q squared minus x squared q squared minus y squared divided by, both have q's, no, I went too fast. Okay, so let's do it there. Now I use the fact that xyz is q squared. Remember, we have this identified. So on the left hand side I will remove z, I mean right hand side has only x and y, so it's convenient for me to remove z bar. So qz bar is q by z, and oh sorry, that should have been xyz equal to q. And so q by z is xy. Okay, so this is equal to sigma q squared sigma xy plus the same thing. And now let me simplify. So q to the 4 minus 1 x squared y squared minus 1 plus q squared minus x squared q squared minus y squared. All of them have the same denominator, both of them have the same denominator, which is q squared x squared. Okay, and now you simplify and you will get, so you see the q to the 4 term comes with a minus sign over here, comes with a plus sign over here, so it will go away. And there is an x squared y squared term that will come with a minus sign here and with a plus sign here. So that will also go away. And so you will get q to the 4 x squared y squared minus q squared x squared plus y squared plus 1 divided by q squared xy, and that is equal to q squared x squared minus 1 q squared y squared minus 1 divided by q squared xy, and that is precisely the numerator of RHS. Any questions? Okay, so you see something highly non-trivial has happened. You summed some inhomogeneous things, and you got the right hand side. And the last, so that's the only non-trivial identity I will do. The last identity is similar, and so let me tick mark this and let me mark here. So inward arrows are O2, O5, and O6, and let me put that over here, and so I leave it for an exercise, as an exercise for you to check that you get this time that the left hand side has only one. Oh, I should at least draw the arrows. Okay, so O2, O5, O6, 7 word, 1, 4 are outward, O2, O6 inward. I have to keep saying this otherwise. So here you get the identity. So check that we get sigma of qx sigma of qz equals sigma of qz bar sigma of qx bar sigma q squared sigma q squared plus sigma qy bar divided by sigma q squared. So once you check this, by the same ideas as before, because the condition is xyz equals q is symmetric, it's the same idea. And okay. So all of these things together prove the Yang-Baxter equation. Okay. So there is, as I said, a lot of non-triviality here, and this is why these weights are chosen, particularly this identity. Okay. All right. So now, how do we use this? Well, what good is this identity? How the hell is this going to help us? So the thing to notice is that when the left hand side has xyz and the right hand side has xzy. So what it has, the effect of doing is it has the effect of moving this label x past this column, and so when it moves, it joins x as O6 to O1, O5 to O4, and takes the connection on the right hand side. So it, instead of O2 connecting directly to O1, it's going to connect to O1 through x, and similarly O3 directly connecting to O4 connects to. Okay, so that's, and it's interchange these labels. So that's the key point. So this is what we can prove now. This is the lemma. Zn of x1 up to xn, y1 up to yn is symmetric in the x's. So that's what we'll prove for the yi's by a completely analogous argument using the same Yang-Baxter equation. So proof. So we start with, as usual, this configuration. So x1, x2, xn, y1 by 2 yn, outwards vertically, inwards horizontally, remember. And what we are going to do is modify the left part of the ith and I plus 1th rows as follows. So what we're going to do, so imagine this is the I consistent. So imagine this is the I minus 1th row. This is the first column. This is the I plus first row, and these two are the ith and I minus 1th rows. So what we're going to do is this came here. Instead of, so this is xi minus 1, xi plus 1, xi plus 2. Instead of joining directly, so these are, we're going to add this vertex and so we're going to add this vertex and keep the same arrows here. So at this point, it's all going from this point onwards. There's no difference. I mean, there are two incoming arrows exactly as before. Okay. And now remember what the weights are. So this has weight xi by y1. Label, I mean, this is y1. Remember the labels of the vertices are row labels divided by column labels, and we put them in the bottom left, which is the same as putting them on the top right. And here we'll have x I plus 1 by y1 for this guy. Okay, so here's another color. Okay, so what about this fellow? So we'll add this label and we will give it weight q xi plus 1 by xi. Okay, so adding this vertex, it leaves the rest of the thing invariant. So if this earlier it was a valid configuration, it continues to be because the incoming arrows here are only affected and the weights are all the same. The only thing extra is the weight of this vertex has the sole effect, and this has you know, is going, if I adjust accordingly, this is up and right going, has the sole effect of multiplying every global weight, multiplying the weight of every configuration, weight of C, by sigma of q times this, so q squared xi plus 1 by xi. Okay, is that clear? I mean, so then appealing to the Yang-Baxter equation, so we will appeal to the Yang-Baxter equation in anticipation. If I use the terminology as before, then from YBE terminology, x is q I, xi plus 1 xi, sorry, this is the same x, y is xi by y1. I hope that will not cause any confusion. This x and y are from the Yang-Baxter. And z is not xi plus 1 by y1, but because it's in the wrong location. Remember, z should be on this side, so I can fix that by taking its y1 by xi plus 1, so that xyz is indeed q. Okay. Now I apply the Yang-Baxter equation once. So I'll show you how to apply. So apply. So we satisfy all the conditions of the Yang-Baxter equation. Two of the internal vertices here are fixed, but that should not bother you, because we know that no matter what the outer conditions are, this will work, and this just forces some things, but that's quite okay. So, applying the Yang-Baxter equation, we arrive at, and this is what I was saying. So let me draw the things carefully. So let me choose these four. So here is, as usual, xi minus 1, xi plus 1. Now this is y1, and this will go here. I'll space out y1 and y2. This is y1, y2, xi minus 1, xi plus 1, xi plus 2. And now this goes like so. And let's look at the right hand side. So now this x which was here goes here. Okay. So that x which was here went here, and so this becomes, on this side, becomes the same exact thing, which is q xi plus 1 by xi. But because this putting it over here is the same as putting it there, okay, let me finish this. So what has happened is purely on this side. Okay, the right hand side of the Yang-Baxter equation is this side. The x weight should have come here, but it doesn't matter. I can put it over here. It's the same. Now what happened to y? So y here was xi by y1. It should go over here and become xi by y1. Sorry, on this side. So let's check. So it should come over here. So which means over here, and so it is xi by y1. Remember, that's y. And z is y1 by xi plus 1. But if I put it over here, it's again xi plus 1 by y1. Okay, here it would have been y1 by xi plus 1, but I moved it here. So again, both are in the bottom left positions, exactly as in the original configuration. So this sort of disturbance, if you like, this disturbance that I added has propagated through in a highly nonlinear way, but leaving this intact. And now I will do the same thing over here. So here my y is going to be xi by y2. It's in the same location, and here it's going to be y2 by xi plus 1. And now you continue. Now we are back in the same position of applying the Yang-Baxter equation. Continue this way. Moving the x label column by column using the Yang-Baxter equation at every time until we exit at the right hand side, leaving a configuration like so. I just draw it here because I think the idea is clear. So I'll get this, and I'll get the same weight, and these were pointing inwards anyway, and these will end up pointing inwards also. Okay, and this has the same weight. This weight does not depend on the column, so I continue to get q x I plus 1 by xi, which I can remove, which can now be removed. adjusting for this factor, absorbing the extra factor we added. So what's the upshot of all this? How did all this help? So the upshot of this transformation is that xi and xi plus 1 have been interchanged. So for every single configuration that contributed earlier, the weight that you get over there will be replaced, will be the same weight with xi and xi plus 1 interchanged. So that proves that the partition function is the same. I mean, it's symmetric in xi. Any questions? Okay. All right. So this is the beauty, and this is really the power of the Yang-Baxter equation that allowed Zervin and Korpin, mainly Korpin, I guess, to understand the symmetry. Okay, so this lemma established symmetry. So for the rest of the proof of the Zervin-Korpin determinant, we show that the expression on the right hand side, which I'll call Fn, so let me call this whole so I'll call this whole expression, I'll call it Fn of x1 up to xn. I'll use the same notation as Zn. So we want to show that Fn and Zn have the same, satisfy the same things. So we show that Fn and Zn satisfy these properties, the following properties, and we will appeal to uniqueness and induction. So both are symmetric, which we have done. In xi's and yj's separately. For Zn, we showed it for the xi's, and similarly you can show it for the yi's. For Fn, it's a matter of converting rows to columns. Okay, and maybe some minor regularly, but nothing deep. Secondly, both have degree 2n minus 2 in x1. Okay, I'm running out of time, so maybe I'll not go into details. I ask you to check. So I'll leave this as an exercise for you, but I'll just explain quickly. So when I say degree, I mean this is numerator. So degree of numerator minus degree of denominator. Okay, so let me explain via the picture. So you remember in so let's look at Zn. So from the ASM picture, you know that there will be exactly one there will be exactly one in the first row. So that means only one, there will be exactly one vertex which will be of type 1, and the others will be either of types 3 to 6. Each one of them will give a weight which is of degree 1 in x1, and that's just a quick check. Okay, so no, sorry, of degree 2. No, what am I saying? Sorry, of degree 1 in x1. Sorry, there's a slide there. So this will be degree n minus 1. Yeah, exactly. So there will be degree. So there will be n minus 1 of these, and each will have degree 1. Okay, so that gives you for the Zn side. For the x, for Fn, let's go here. So look at the degree of each of these guys. So you will get degree n over here, and this will cancel with degree 1 over here. These will not contribute. Okay. No, I'm saying that wrong. Just a second. So I will get degree 2 and sorry, yes, that's it. Yeah, so I'll get degree 2n from here. Sorry, 2n from here, because j runs from 1 to n. So I'll get degree 2n from here. From here, I will get degree minus 1, n minus 1 times. And so that will take care of n minus 1 of those. And I'll get degree 2 here. So it will give 2n minus n minus 1 minus 2. And that is exactly n minus 1. Yeah. So that proves that. And as I said, if you are not satisfied, if you're not satisfied, please go ahead and check. Okay. But it is correct. The last thing is the non-trivial part, which is that to see what happens when setting y1 equals qx1. So setting y1 equals qx1 on both sides, or in both cases, gives the same identity, which I will now explain in the last 5 or so minutes. And that will so sorry, I'll go a little over time. Anyway, it's the last class, so your torture is almost over. So for Zn, okay, so for Zn, what happens? So let's go to the weights. So when you set y1 equals x1, y1 equals qx1, I'm sorry, you notice that here, okay, so let me go slowly. So the top vertex, the 1, 1 vertex can either be of this form or of this form, 1 or 3. Okay. If I have it of type 3, then I will get sigma of q x1 by y1. So for Zn, so this is the first case, sigma of q x1 by y1 will become sigma of 1, which is 0. So the 1, 1 vertex cannot be of type 3. So it has to has to be of type 1. So in other words, it's like putting a 1 in the first row and first column of the ASM. So what remains is so then the other vertices in the first row and first column are frozen. The first column becomes first row becomes of type 3, and the first column becomes of type where is it? So inwards and downwards. Yeah, this of type 5. So you get either type 3 or type 5 in the first row and first column, and what you are left with is an n minus 1 by n minus 1 matrix with again the internal arrows pointing these arrows and these arrows pointing in exactly the same way as these and these. Okay, so the first row and column is frozen, and we get Zn of x1 up to xn semicolon qx1 y2 up to yn is equal to product j equals 2 to n. Just accounting for all those extra things, you get sigma of q x1 bar yj sigma of q squared x1 xj bar divided by sigma q squared whole squared, one for each term, times Zn minus 1 of x2 up to xn y2 up to yn. Okay, which is now the n minus 1th fellow. Okay, and for Fn it's a little more complicated. You cannot just set y1 equals qx1 over here in this matrix, because this I get this factor is in the denominator and it will give you a 0, a 1 by 0. So what you have to do is to multiply out by this corresponding factor here, make this a 1, kill all the terms in the first row of the determinant, then do the setting, then expand the determinant, etc., etc. And you know, this is you know, not too difficult. One can show that Fn satisfies the same identity. There are some cancellations which will happen, miraculous cancellations, and which will lead you to the same identity, which I label as an exercise. Okay, and then using induction and these three properties, as well as uniqueness. So one has to argue that there is only one polynomial which can satisfy, symmetric polynomial that can satisfy these identities. Completes it. Okay. All right. Okay. Any questions about this? Okay. So let me stop recording.